Hello, my name is Simon Doclo, and I will present the results of a recently published study on the technical and perceptual evaluation of the acoustic transparency feature in Hearables. This is work mainly conducted by Florian Denk, who is currently working at the German Institute of Hearing Aids, and Henning Schipker, who is currently working at Starkey. For people who have never heard about the term hearable, this term actually refers to wearable hearing technology and comprises ear-worn devices that go far beyond simple earphones for music listening and hearing aids. Many of these devices nowadays contain multiple sensors, besides microphones also biosensors to measure, for example, movement or heart rate, and they address many functionalities such as telephony, active noise control, augmented reality, and individualized hearing support. An important feature in many hearables is the so-called hear-through feature, which allows the user to hear the external sound environment electroacoustically through the device. In the optimum case, which is referred to as acoustic transparency, the user would not perceive any difference between listening with the open ear and listening through the device with the hear-through feature active. This is typically implemented by playing back the signal picked up by a microphone on the hearing device after appropriate filtering, where one obviously needs to take into account the superposition with the sound leaking through, for example, a vent. Such acoustic transparency is important for a natural and high-fidelity sound quality and for good localization and spatial hearing. Hence, it forms the basis for hearing support, such as amplification, dynamic range compression, and noise reduction, as well as for mixed reality. In this presentation, I will present the technical and perceptual evaluation results of the hear-through feature for several commercial hearables and for two research hearing devices developed at the University of Oldenburg. I would like to stress that the main objective is not to rate these devices among each other, but to pinpoint the most critical factors for realizing convincing acoustic transparency in hearables. For the evaluation, 7 commercial hearables were included. Devices A to C classify themselves as hearing support devices, while devices D to G are wireless earbuds. For all commercial devices, the hear-through feature was activated and all other sound processing options were deactivated. In addition, 2 research prototypes developed at the University of Oldenburg were included. The first prototype, referred to as UOL commodity, is based on consumer earphones with integrated microphones. The second prototype, referred to as the acoustically transparent earpiece, is based on a custom electroacoustic ear mold and allows for adaptation to individual ear acoustics. As can be seen, all considered devices are in the ear devices. That means they sit in the ear canal and fill a considerable part of the concha. The fit is however different, where devices A, C, and UOL commodity have a loose fit, whereas device B and all earbuds have a tight fit, and the acoustically transparent earpiece has a semi-open vent. I will now explain the research prototypes in a bit more technical detail. The acoustically transparent earpiece, which is now also commercially available, contains 3 microphones and 2 receivers, where only 1 receiver is used in this study. 2 microphones are located in the vent. The acoustically transparent earpiece allows for an individualized in situ calibration of the equalization filter. Processing consists of 2 stages. First, a multi-microphone null steering beamformer for acoustic feedback suppression, and second, an equalization filter. The equalization filter aims to adapt a frequency response such that the superposition of the playback receiver signal and the leakage at the eardrum is as close as possible to the open ear response, which is estimated from one of the microphone signals. We consider 2 variants, where either the equalization filter was computed using the in-ear microphone, which is feasible in practice, or using the eardrum response, which is only possible using a dummy head. Secondly, the UOL commodity device uses generic filters for equalization. All real-time processing on both devices was performed using OpenMHA. The technical measurements were performed in an anechoic chamber, the so-called virtual reality lab, where the devices under test were inserted into the ears of a KEMA dummy head. The anthropometric ears of the dummy head facilitated the controlled fitting of the devices in the ears. Transfer functions were measured for 93 directions using multiple exponential sweeps, both for the open ear case and with the devices inserted, either just passive, resulting in the occluded response, as well as with the hear-through feature enabled. We also measured nonlinearities and self-noise, but these results will not be presented in this presentation. Let's consider the frequency responses, where the responses shown here are diffuse field averages over all directions. In the left column are the hearing support devices, in the middle column the earphones, and in the right column the research prototype devices. The green curve shows the open ear response, that is the response which is desired for acoustic transparency. The dotted blue curves show the occluded responses, that is with a passive device inserted. The attenuation characteristics can be roughly divided into two groups. The tight fit devices with a large attenuation versus the loose fit devices and the vented acoustically transparent earpiece. Let's now have a look at the hear-through responses, where the gray curves depict the responses for the different directions, and the solid blue curve is again the diffuse field average. As can be observed, the best match between the hear-through response and the open ear response is achieved by device C and the acoustically transparent earpiece. A larger deviation is present for device A and the commodity device, followed by devices B and E, where especially in the low and the high frequency regions, there are large deviations. The largest deviations occur for devices D and F. Another interesting effect which can be noticed are comb filtering effects, so spectral ripples, which occur due to the interaction between the leakage component and the output of the device, especially when the delay is large. These comb filtering effects mainly occur in the frequency region below 1 kHz and can be clearly seen in device A and all research devices, especially the commodity device. In order to investigate how these frequency responses correlate with the subjective impression, we performed a listening experiment with 17 normal hearing subjects. For this experiment, we pre-recorded different signals, both speech as well as music, from 3 different playback directions in the lab with a reverberation time of about 450 milliseconds, where the devices were again inserted in the ears of the dummy head. These recorded signals were then presented to the subject over headphones, which is obviously different than the subjects wearing these devices, but allows for a very controlled experiment. The task of the subjects was then to compare the overall quality of the stimuli using a Mushra drag-and-drop interface, where we conducted 2 different experiments. Experiment 1, where the subjects compared the stimuli to the open ear reference, which is the most critical experiment, and experiment 2 without the open ear reference, which is closer to reality. As an anchor signal, we used the occluded ear signal. We will first discuss the results of experiment 1, that is the most critical experiment where the open ear reference is given. What is shown here are the aggregated results computed as the median quality rating across all signals and playback directions. As can be observed, all subjects could reliably identify the hidden reference. Secondly, the occluded ear anchor was rated as poor as desired. And for people who already forgot what these devices were, devices A to C correspond to the hearing support devices, devices D to F to the wireless earphones, and the other 3 devices to the research prototypes developed at the University of Oldenburg. Let's now correlate the perceptual Mushra scores with the technical measures, more in particular with the frequency response match to the open ear and the comb filtering effects. First of all, the frequency response match seems to be highly indicative for a high perceptual quality. That is, the devices with a very good match, more in particular device C and the acoustically transparent earpiece, yield the highest quality ratings. All earphones were rated between bad and poor, sometimes even lower than the anchor, and these were also the devices with the worst frequency responses. Comb filtering effects apparently had a smaller influence than the frequency matched to the open ear response. When now analyzing the Mushra scores for the second experiment, that is without the open ear reference, it can be observed that all devices with a good to very good frequency response match are rated between good and excellent, showing that the open ear properties are a good target for acoustic transparency. In conclusion, in this study, we have evaluated the hear-through feature of several commercial and research hearables. Quite strikingly, we found large differences among commercial hearables. In addition, we found that the main factor for a high perceptual sound quality is the frequency response match of the aided response to the open ear response, where secondary factors are the avoidance of comb filtering and the preservation of binaural cues. We were, of course, also very happy to see that our own research prototypes were in par with the best commercial devices. As a next step, we will now also explore the availability of all available receivers and microphones, not only for acoustical transparency, but also for active noise and occlusion control, and we will investigate the integration of individualized ear canal models. For this work, there are many people to acknowledge, most importantly Florian Denk and Henning Schepker, who developed the research prototypes and the algorithms, and several student research assistants who performed the listening experiments. More details about this study can be found in 2 companion papers, which were recently published in the Journal of the Audio Engineering Society. Many thanks for your attention.